This is Caribbean News Desk. I'm Dennis Chabrol. In this edition, Antigua and Barbuda moves to address concerns by Caricom nationals who believe that they are being denied the citizenship of that twin island nation. Guyana gets a $50 million line of credit from India. The Eastern Caribbean is to be marketed as a single yachting destination. China to trade in mortgage-backed securities in the Bahamas. Barbados hopes to remain a peace zone despite rising global conflict. Details of these and all the stories coming up.
We are one Caribbean, one people, one nation. Facing the same destiny, so separated we are. As one, let's come together. One market economy. Caribbean is how it should be. Let's support Caricom.
Caricom nationals living in Antigua and Barbuda who believe that they are being denied citizenship should soon have a new mechanism to make their case. The government in St. John's on Thursday announced plans to set up an immigration appeals tribunal while not implementing new taxes this financial year. The pronouncements were made in the throne speech delivered by Governor General Rodney Williams ahead of the budget presentation on Monday. In his first speech from the throne, Williams says the government is working to get the Immigration Appeals Tribunal up and running by March.
The tribunal will act as a court of first instance, hearing cases of immigrants who doubt the validity or correctness of decisions rendered by the Immigration Department. Those from the Caribbean community and other states who believe that they have been wronged by a decision of the Immigration Department will have the right to utilize the Immigration Appeals Tribunal. Fairness and justice will continue to be the hallmark of my government's dealings with those who have come to work and live among us. The people of Antigua and Barbuda are kind and generous. We treat others as we would like to be treated when we venture into other lands to work and live.
Caricom nationals in Antigua and Barbuda have long complained that they are unfairly being denied the right to citizenship, even though they have been lawfully residing there for the prescribed period of 7 years. A Caribbean scholar is heading to Paris this summer to speak at a prestigious European conference on what's a decidedly controversial topic back at his home in the Cayman Islands. As Radio Cayman's Carsley Fuller reports, he'll be highlighting what he describes as the tense relationship between the locals and expatriate workers.
In December, president of the University College of the Cayman Islands and local author Roy Bodden was asked to submit a paper that harkened back to his first published work, The Cayman Islands in Transition.
December the 18th, they wrote, congratulate me, and said that they had received 2,150 proposals, and mine was one of the successful ones chosen.
What exactly are you going to be speaking to the conference about specifically?
The topic of my presentation is deconstructing development, immigration, society, and economy in early 20th century Cayman, which is the material covered in my book.
Yeah, it seems like a very topical discussion.
My thesis is that the Cayman Islands can be a great society, but we have some challenges. We have to bridge the divide between expatriates and Caymanians, and we have an identity crisis because of voluntary colonialism.
The people who were deciding who would be speaking at the conference felt that your particular discussion was important, not only to the Cayman Islands, but obviously it could see a similar situation in other countries.
This is not unlike what happens in other territories, precisely. My ideas are not popular in Cayman. However, as an academic, I think it's incumbent upon me to raise these issues which need to be addressed. And I'm humbled. I saw some names of some of the presenters at this conference, and they are eminent and respected academics. So it means that as a Caymanian, I am considered worthy of the company of these people. Not a small feat at all.
The 22nd Council for European Studies Conference of the Europeanist is July 8th through the 10th.
That report by Carsley Fuller in the Cayman Islands. Barbados' Prime Minister Frondel Stewart is now among Caribbean travelers who are seeing the funny side of the frustrating experience when moving around the region with the long-serving island hopper Liet. Welcoming visitors to Barbados at a cocktail reception, the Prime Minister noted that tourists from the Caribbean make up the third number of persons coming to the island after holidays from the UK and the US. But he gave credit to the Caribbean persons for showing determination to visit Barbados, though getting there is more difficult for them than it is for European and North American visitors.
Our third largest source market is our Caricom neighbours. That is as it should be. After all, it is easier for them, well, I shouldn't say that, because sometimes it's more difficult for them to get here than for people to get from the United States here. But let's just say that the passion to get here is sufficiently strong that they would put themselves to any kind of trouble to get to Barbados, and therefore we thank them most heartily for the support they continue to give to our economy as well. The issue of regional air transportation is one with which we have grappled over the years, and we have not got it resolved as yet. We still have to rely on Leeward Islands air transport to ferret people around, and I'm sure that most of you know that the vagaries of that experience have led people in the Caribbean to interpret LIAT not as Leeward Islands Air Transport, but as Leave Island Anytime.
The Organization of Eastern Caribbean States, or OECS, plans to present the region as a single yachting destination during the 57th Toronto International Boat Show, scheduled for January 10 to 12. The government of St. Lucia said Thursday that the OECS decision is part of its strategy to unify efforts and provide services and attractions to the yachting sector to boost regional economic growth. Established in 1981, the OECS will present a collective yachting space as an Eastern Caribbean village. The Toronto International Boat Show is marketed as North America's largest indoor boat show, with more than 93,000 visitors attending the 2014 edition, the government of St. Lucia said in a statement. 7 of the 9 OECS member states will be represented in the show: Anguilla, Antigua and Barbuda, the British Virgin Islands, Dominica, Grenada, St. Lucia, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Guyana has secured a $50 million line of credit from India to improve road and sea transportation. The agreement was reached by Guyana's President Donald Ramotar during talks in India with that country's Prime Minister Narendra Modi. Mr. Modi's office said in a statement that the money will be used to finance the construction of a road to link the east bank and east coast of Demerara. The Indian government also says it has agreed to concessional credit to supply a passenger ferry ship to help Guyana overcome transportation problems in the northern region. The Indian Prime Minister said that his country will establish an information technology center in Guyana, making it the first such facility to be built by India in South America. The Bahamas' Prime Minister Perry Christie announced on Wednesday an agreement in principle with Chinese President Xi Jinping that would allow the trading of mortgage-backed securities in the Caribbean country. The Bahamas government says that Christie, who traveled to Beijing in his capacity as chairman of the Caribbean community, met with Xi for 30 minutes to discuss bilateral economic issues. During the meeting, China agreed to cooperate with the Bahamas to introduce mortgage-backed securities as a new financial product. The decision is in line with the policy of new Financial Services Minister Hope Strachan to convert the Bahamas into a financial hub, the government said. Christie's visit is part of his first official appearance as chairman of Caricom, representing the Caribbean region at the January 8th summit of China and the Community of Latin American and Caribbean States known as CELAC. The China CELAC conference will review progress and initiatives launched by Xi during his July 2014 tour of Latin America. Against the backdrop of violent conflict along with unrest spurred by terrorism in other parts of the world, Barbados' Prime Minister Frondel Stewart is vowing to do all within his power to ensure Barbados remains a zone of peace. His position was made known on Wednesday night, just hours after terrorists invaded a satirical newspaper in France and killed 12 persons, including several media workers. Speaking to hundreds of visitors who turned up at his Elaro court residence for a cocktail reception in their honor, the Prime Minister assured them of an effort across the Caribbean to retain the region as a place of enjoyment and relaxation. Following an enthusiastic welcome by pupils of the Bay Primary School, Stewart greeted the repeat tourists with a warning that the peace of the Caribbean is not to be taken lightly.
Mercifully, we in this part of the world have managed to maintain the Caribbean as a zone of peace. And many of the perils, which are now fairly routinized in other parts of the world, we have managed to keep at bay. Now, that is not a boast. It is just my way of saying that we cannot take these things for granted. We have to continue to work as hard as possible to ensure that the Caribbean remains a zone of peace. And certainly as long as I am Prime Minister of Barbados, that will be my commitment so far as Barbados is concerned. But I'm sure that my other colleagues in the Caribbean feel similarly.
Several nationals of Trinidad and Tobago have traveled to Syria to fight for the terrorist group called Islamic State of Iraq and Syria, or ISIS. Caricom leaders have put the issue of global terrorism high on their agenda. Meanwhile, the alleged perpetrators of this week's Paris terror attack on the satirical weekly Charlie Hebdo were hailed as heroes Thursday by the Islamic State jihadist militia in a statement read over its internet radio channel. The statement accused the French weekly of insulting the Prophet Muhammad since 2003, adding that among those 12 killed in Wednesday's massacre were cartoonists who had been mocking Islam. French policemen have stepped up their efforts to track down the suspects identified as brothers Saeed and Sheriff Kouachi, who are believed to have shot dead the magazine's editor, 3 cartoonists, and 2 policemen, along with other victims. Sheriff Kouachi was tried in 2005 for sending jihadist recruits to Iraq. He was convicted of sending 10 young men to the Arab country in 2003 to 2005 and sentenced to 3 years in prison. ISIS proclaimed in June an Islamic caliphate in the vast territories that it seized in Iraq and Syria.
We are 15 states with a common goal, a unified purpose to face the world, enriching lives, empowering people, creating a strong economic region. No matter where you're from, no hassle, just freedom. Whether business, school, or pleasure, we will benefit together. The Caricom single market, good for you and me. The Caricom single market, good for you and me. The Caricom single market, good for you and me. Oh yeah!
And just before we go, a recap of our major stories we've been covering today. Antigua and Barbuda moves to address concerns by Caricom nationals who believe that they're being denied the citizenship of that twin island nation. Guyana gets a $50 million line of credit from India to boost transportation. India is also to set up South America's first information technology center. The Eastern Caribbean is to be marketed as a single yachting destination. China to trade in mortgage-backed securities in the Bahamas. And of course, we told you that Barbados hopes to remain a peace zone despite rising global conflict. Thank you for joining us in this edition of Caribbean News Desk. If you would like to advertise your products and services across the Caribbean, feel free to drop us a line at caribnewsdesk@gmail.com. You could also visit us on our website at caribnewsdesk.com. We're also on Facebook at facebook.com/caribnewsdesk. And we could also be followed on Twitter at twitter.com/demwaves. Again, thank you for joining us and have a great rest of the day. I'm Dennis.